Alright guys, so this is a little video tutorial on apple to house conversion. So what we have here in the file that you should have opened in Illustrator is your layer with the apple image and the house image. They're both bitmaps. We're really only using the house bitmap as a guide because essentially what we want to do is convert our apple to a vector graphic and then move the anchor points around to mimic the outline of the house. So we're getting essentially turning the apple into the house. So what we want to do first is lock the image file, and then we want to hide it. Okay, so if I'm following directions, and I'm going to go through this pretty quickly, it's pretty simple. Make sure you're in Essentials Classic so that you have your options bar available. And then we're going to go to use the selection tool and go to image trace make. So this is just a longer way of tracing a bitmap image. So if I go to object, image trace make, and then directions say go to object image trace expand. Same thing, we had that button up here, you could have clicked that. I'm just showing you a different way of tracing an image, going through those 3 steps: image trace, expand, and now ungroup. Same things we did with Mario yesterday. So I'm going to now ungroup. We really only have 2 paths, so object ungroup. Now we have the compound path and we have the apple path. Apple's on its own. Compound path you can't really see unless you move it off the artboard, but we don't want it anyway, so I'm just going to hit delete and delete that. Now the next thing we want to do is we can bring the house back at this point. We still want it locked because we don't want to move it, but we want to make this apple transparent so we can see the outline of the house through it. So I'm going to go to up here. If I have my selection tool, we have our opacity slider up here, about 60%. Doesn't have to be perfect, or you could use the opacity / transparency window. Look, these numbers are exactly the same. So a couple different ways to make that transparent. Now the next thing we want to do, and I'm going to leave this sort of off to the side of the house, is we want to set ourselves up with the tools that we need to move all these anchor points around. So in the directions, again, it says to right click on the pen tool and click on the vertical bar out here, and we're going to undock these 4 tools. So what we're really dealing with here is selection tool, direct selection tool, add anchor point, subtract or delete anchor point, and then we have the conversion tool, which they keep changing the name on that, I think, but I call it the anchor point conversion tool right here, and we'll talk about that more in a second. There are essentially 2 rules that you need to follow while you're doing this. Rule number 1 is there should be an anchor point over the top of the house wherever the curve changes direction. So again, we're not viewing this house as this solid object. You need to visualize the outside as a curve or a path. Okay, so every time that path changes directions, you're going to need an anchor point. So we're going to need one here, 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 and essentially one here, and then one here, and then one here. And you'll see it as I do it. The other rule is do not cross anchor points over. Remember, paths have direction, and as soon as you do something like, remember I have to click on one to activate just that one, this, and we cross over paths with our anchor point, that's very bad. We don't want that to happen. So I'm just going to Control Z to undo that. So what I'm going to do is start moving anchor points where these curve changes directions. And so we're doing this as a blanket approach. It's not going to look very good to begin with. It's going to be a bit messy, but we'll go back and clean it up afterwards. And I know from experience doing this for several years that we're going to have too many anchor points we don't need. So once we get our anchor points set, we'll move or we'll delete anchor points that we don't need. Again, sometimes it's a matter of moving things around so we don't cross paths. So I'm sort of moving stuff out of the way because I know the next anchor point goes straight. This is a straight line here. We don't need any anchor points in between straight lines, only where it changes direction. So I'm going to have to go here. Now it's going to get a little confusing because we're going to start crossing some things up. So again, I'm moving things out of the way, keeping my anchor points in line because again, there's direction, we have lines. If at any point you start getting confused over here, excuse me, you can go back over and start working the other way. So for example, if I grab this anchor point, we have a change of direction around right there. We have, oh no, what happened? I clicked a button on my recorder. I'm not sure what I clicked. Oh no. I don't want to highlight. Let's see. I just clicked that. Will it undo? I can't get my tools back. Sorry about that. Never clicked that button before on accident. There's a highlight. There's T. There's... Okay, I think I'm back to normal now. Sorry about that. So I have my direct selection tool, and I'm going to keep moving. Change it. Again, it's going to look ugly, these curves, but I promise you we'll fix it. So change of direction there. This is actually interesting down here because we have a curved corner. It's not a sharp corner, so I'm actually going to put one anchor point there and one anchor point here where we start the other straight line. Another one here. We have curves up here. This is a sharp turn, so you only need one. Up here we need two. So again, boom. And again, you have to get it close. It doesn't have to be perfect. We can move stuff later and get it a little more precise. We just want to keep the direction of our anchor points without crossing over and keep the path in the right direction. Look, so now we're getting a little bit ugly. It gets confusing. So sometimes we want to pull things away so we can make sure we're not crossing over. We got the next one in line here. That's a sharp turn. We're going to need two. Down here, one, two. This one sort of want to pull it down, and I'm moving these sort of in the general area. And now we got this one up here. And we have this one's extra. This is a straight line here. We don't need that one, so I'm going to get my delete anchor point tool and go over here and click delete. Now we should be good to go to starting this up. So what I'm going to do very quickly is get my anchor point tool. That's what this thing is called. I call it convert anchor point. I think Illustrator calls it the anchor point tool. And I'm going to work my way around the whole path and just click once. When you click once on an anchor point, what it does is it sucks those handles in and gets rid of any curvature. So we're going to have straight line to straight line to straight line all the way around this. And if while you're doing this, you want to move your anchor point to a more precise position, if you hold down Control, you should get the last tool used, which in my case is the direct selection tool. So I can quickly just move it. Let go of Control, click, again, Control, I can move it all at the same time so we don't have to go back around. Oops. Boom, boom. That one I need to move a little bit. I'm holding down Control, let go of Control, convert, convert. That's in a decent position. Convert, convert, convert. Decent enough position. This one's on the corner. It's pretty good. Convert, convert. I'm trying to go fast, so I don't want a 20-minute video. Hold down Control, move that into a little better place. Let go, convert, convert. Hold down Control to move that, and convert. Now we have straight lines all the way around. I don't like where this one is. I'm going to move it straight down there. Everything else looks pretty good. So the next step is defining the curvature using the same tool. And I'm going to click, left click, hold, and drag in the direction of my curve. If you drag in the wrong direction, you should very quickly see crossover, which is bad. So we want to drag in the direction of the curve. If you hold down Shift, you'll get straight lines. You'll get them to jump every 45 degrees. Right now, I want this straight line up here. And again, we're getting that curvature close. Doesn't have to be perfect. If I want to move that down a little, again, I hold down Control to get my direct selection tool, then release to get that anchor point tool again. Straight line, straight line, straight line. This one gets a little tricky, but if I drag straight down, and then I drag this one straight across, you should get that little curve right there. So just a little bit. Perfect. Straight line, curve, drag in the direction of the curve. This one I got to drag in the direction of the curve. Again, this doesn't have to be perfect. I just want to see that there's an arch there. drag in the selection of the curve, click, hold, and drag in the direction of the path of the curve, straight line, click, hold, and drag in the direction of the path. Same thing there. If I want to move that back or this one more, I'm holding down Control to get my direct selection tool. Pretty good there. Straight, 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 straight. Everything else is straight. So what we have now is a house. So if I get my regular selection tool and move it slightly out of the way, you'll see that, or I can move it totally out of the way. We can always move it back. We have mimicked the house. Okay, again, the directions say to change the color of this house to green. So I'm going to click up here in my color, change it to green, any green you want, and then change the opacity to about 80%. And then offset it by about 1/2 inch. So I'm just going to move it down and away by a little bit, because when I grade these and you submit them, I want to be able to see the green house and the black house behind it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to lock that path, and we're going to create a new layer, and I'm going to hide this one. And I want you in this new layer to just use the pen tool and the pen tool only to recreate the house. So we're getting comfortable using the pen tool. So anytime there's a sharp change in direction, we click once, click once, click once, click once to start this curve. Now we get this curve up here. I'm going to click, hold, and drag to get the curve, and then I'm going to click once. We got a straight line. Boom, boom. Now I can't see where I'm going, so I'm going to go over to my transparency window, take my transparency down. Now I can see straight line, oops, Control Z, straight line, but pull a little bit, straight line and pull a little bit, straight corner, click and drag a little bit, 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 straight up, click and drag a little bit, click and drag a little bit, straight, point, sharp curve, sharp turn, voila, boom. We have a new greenhouse, which will be very confusing once we bring the other one back. So I want you to color this one red. And I want you to, let's change the opacity up just a little bit more. Move it off. Show the other one. So I want 3 houses, all a little bit offset so I can see all the curves. Actually, with this one, we could probably move way over here if we want. I just want to be able to see all 3 of your houses when we save this PDF. So you're actually going to save, as the directions say, a PDF and submit to Google Classroom. Show all your layers and make sure they are offset so I can easily see your work. So you may want to change opacity down a little bit so I can be sure that I can see your curves. That's locked, so I'm going to select it and take the opacity down just a little bit more. And there we go. So File, Save as PDF, name it properly, submit.